It's hard to believe, in an entertainment culture that has descended into bitter tribalism, where people en masse invest their time, soul, sense of identity and self-worth into sticking up for whatever effluent streams out of the pipe each week from the studios, there could still be films or shows that somehow earn almost universal disdain. But every so often, something tumbles out the garbage chute that earns that dubious distinction, and Netflix's Queen Cleopatra is a prime example. Calling itself a documentary series, but in reality about as faithful to historical accuracy as the Flintstones. In attempting to rewrite historical facts to suit a 21st century political narrative and gaslight critics as reactionaries, the show has earned a 14% rating among the critics on Rotten Tomatoes and a stunning 1% from user reviews.
What? 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 What?
The series, African Queens, produced and narrated by Jada Pinkett Smith, depicts the Egyptian pharaoh Cleopatra, who was played by a black actress, which is something of a liberty given the historical record, statues, pictures and coins indicate that she was far more likely to have been Greek Macedonian. The reason the Cleopatra controversy matters isn't so much to do with history exactly, as with a slightly different term, historiography. In simple terms, historiography is the writing of history, especially that based on the critical examination of sources, the selection of particular details from the authentic materials in those sources, and the synthesis of those details into a narrative that stands the test of critical examination. Jada Pinkett Smith and director Tina Garavi are attempting to forefront and champion black history, but in weakening the foundations and certainties of the historical record, they are doing a disservice to the experience of the community they are representing, as black history was filtered through the academic establishment, which for generations didn't admit black people into its cohort, and distorted, marginalized, or buried the narratives of people of color, using historical inaccuracy to undermine, to nullify, to hide and downplay certain truths, to maintain hierarchies of power by reshaping or obscuring historical events and historical figures. The weakening of the lack of faithfulness to historiography, the disregard shown to it as a discipline, contributed to the perpetration of marginalized black voices and stories over so many generations. So Jada Pinkett Smith and Tina Garavi, in failing to show fidelity to history, and in shaping it to their own narrative and agenda, are doing the one thing to historiography they ought to be most wary of, and to detest, given the extent to which it has fallen prey to agendas when used improperly and not respected to the full. As a historian, Carter G. Woodson sought to share black history with other members of his profession, but was barred from attending the meetings of the American Historical Association despite being a member in good standing. Woodson believed that black history and culture were overlooked, ignored, and even suppressed by the writers of history textbooks and the teachers who used them. Stories of people of color aren't always found in the public records or data sets. It has taken the emerging generation's investigative and explanatory journalism to gradually uncover the people, places, and ideas often left out of the history books. In the early 1920s, the Greenwood neighborhood of Tulsa, Oklahoma was thriving. Its streets were lined with successful black-owned businesses and black professionals. The district was so successful that the area was dubbed the Black Wall Street. But in 1921, a mob of several thousand murdered up to 300 black residents and destroyed almost every black business, church, and home in the 35-square block neighborhood. What followed the massacre was a national forgetting. No reckoning, no justice, and no accountability. Black property owners were never compensated, and neither the city nor the state committed money toward rebuilding Greenwood in the aftermath. In fact, up until recently, the massacre was hardly taught or discussed at all. There was a violence of forgetting. History was displaced in favor of more convenient, ideal interpretations of history. Up until recently, showrunners have usually pushed back against criticism over diverse casting choices by framing the critics as fragile and out of touch. But in this case, it is Egyptians who are accusing the Netflix documentary of blackwashing. An Egyptologist and former Antiquities Minister of Egypt said, "This is completely fake. Cleopatra was Greek, meaning that she was light-skinned, not black," adding that Netflix is trying to provoke confusion by spreading false and deceptive facts that the origin of the Egyptian civilization is black. Hollywood has always been beset with struggles and tensions around representation. In recent years, however, we've seen the emergence of something different, an almost unfettered relativism, where modern film and TV showrunners no longer have any inhibitions in dispensing with historical accuracy and repurposing the past as they wish it was. The movie in which Elizabeth Taylor played Cleopatra was designed purely for entertainment and therefore had some creative license. The purpose of this show is to distort reality to suit the whims of the showrunners. It provides a striking insight into their mindset, the giving of precedence to empowerment over documentary accuracy. Postcolonial theory and academia centers the experience and perspectives of the colonized, deconstructs the narrative of Eurocentrism, and emphasizes a somber, revisionist contrition when it comes to the past. When you take the gist of that as an attitude, and couple it with a general gist that breaking down boundaries to representation and roles is positive, and decide that such basic distinctions are more or less arbitrary, or a dated social construct, then all of a sudden we're in dodgy territory. You don't want a commitment to historical accuracy, crucial when it comes to the hard work of uncovering deeply buried narratives and stories from the past, to be compromised by marginalizing historical bias, and certainly not to be needlessly undermined by media entertainment touting itself as a documentary. In terms of representation, diversity, and inclusivity, Hollywood is slipping toward a dangerous form of indulgence in terms of the scope and context in which diversity can be presented. There is an endless number of stories to be told about figures and events in history, providing wonderful opportunities for actors of all backgrounds. Everyone would welcome the development of such works, and they would have a far greater and enduring impact than the repurposed, reimagined, and universally panned content from Netflix.